I mean, I just didn't know if you had a report on it.
Yeah.
Right, it is now 7 p.m. This meeting of the Willamina School Board is called to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Which way we go?
Everybody laugh. Go that way.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and for all. Okay. First up, under Board of Education, we have the vote for Board of Director position. There's only one candidate.
I move to cast Willamina School District's vote for Craig Albright for the Yamhill Polk County Region Position 13 of the OSBA Board of Directors.
Second.
Who seconded? I did. All those in favor of casting Willamina School District's vote for Craig Albright for the Yamhill Polk County Region Position number 13 for the OSBA Board of Directors, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Vote is passed. Okay, next up, we have a vote on proposed resolutions by OSBA. There's 3 different resolutions. So if we want to start with number 1, about the OSBA due schedule. Did anyone have any questions about
Why we're paying more?
raising dues?
They haven't raised it since
Oh,
'98.
yeah.
I know.
And it sounds like we're close to that threshold of 1,500 anyways right now.
I move to adopt the OSBA due schedule.
My second.
All those in favor of adopting amending the OSBA due schedule signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. The second resolution would create a position on the OSBA Board of Directors for a Pride Caucus to designate a seat for them and on the Legislative Policy Committee. So they already have they had a whole list of their policies and they already have bylaws and everything, but I think they just want to be officially like a voting.
Yeah, it's
position, right?
another committee. They have a lot of subcommittees. And so this is just another subcommittee off of the board to help represent, like they have the rural caucus committee. So this is just another subcommittee to help recognize those people.
And pay more people. Number 1.
I move to adopt the resolution number 2 that would create a position on the Oregon School Board members Pride Caucus to designate a seat on the OSBA Board of Directors and Legislative Policy Committee.
Second. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 2 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is passed. Okay, resolution number 3 is adopting the proposed amendments of the OSBA bylaws. Looks like there's a little outline, kind of what the major changes would be, but looks like a lot of it was just language changes. Did anyone have any questions about those amendments?
I move to adopt the proposed amendments for OSBA resolution bylaws.
With second.
All those in favor of adopting the proposed amendments of OSBA bylaws signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is passed. Okay. Next up, we have our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
David second.
Yeah.
David.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion is passed.
Just a note, it said that I moved and then it said that I motioned and then moved. And the others
On which part?
on the Board of Education. First part.
That you, about
And then I think
parents'
it's
resignation?
Chris Shirts instead of Chris. Oh, you don't have a T on the end of your name, do you?
Well, if you go to Christopher,
Oh,
I'm not called Christ.
As amended.
Okay,
That's under where, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, where Carly stress inquired about the level of math being taught and Christ Church,
on the second page? Oh,
right in the middle there.
oh, yeah, we just need a typo.
Well, spell check just doesn't recognize it.
Who likes Christ? I get it. It didn't help me sometimes either.
Okay. Was that it or anything else?
Well,
Either
April,
typos?
you put these in the mail like on Thursday?
Nope, they go out Wednesday by 3 p.m.
It's crazy. I didn't get it till today.
Yeah,
in the mail.
I don't know. That's about as soon as we can get it out.
It's Christmas time,
Yeah, that might be some of it.
Last one, I didn't get mine till Tuesday.
Yeah.
the day after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always have extra copies in the district office after Wednesday. So if you feel like you might not get it, you want it ahead of time, you're always welcome to stop by and pick up an extra copy.
And email it, correct?
No, we do not.
No, this doesn't come in email. I looked there too.
Okay, next up, we have our superintendent's report. Yeah.
All right. Hasn't been very long between meetings, but we've been attending a lot of events. We've got Kiwanis Athletics. We have a couple teachers going to the National Physical Education Conference, using some of our grant dollars there. I think last time they went, they actually came back with probably more equipment donated than they cost to send them.
Where's the conference at?
I want to say it's back east somewhere, so it's a bit of a trek. Band performed the other night down at the firehouse for the tree lighting. They did an awesome job. Hats off to those guys, getting them out in the community. A lot of us were at the law conference, getting to know all the new and improved things coming down the pike. School finance workshop in January on the 13th, which is our next meeting. I'm going to propose we do a work session earlier in the day. I have Krista Parent coming from COSA, who runs pretty much the organization that I belong to, but asked her to really highlight for us what's going on in the legislative world, finance as we move into the new biennium and all the changes that are coming. And then I think all the changes that are happening in the PERS retirement process for staff. And I think it's good for us to do that with our leadership team as we move into contract negotiations, things like that. I think it's important for the board to understand the position Oregon's in, position our district's in, and ask her direct questions. The way I described it to leadership today is I know enough to get dangerous around school finance in Oregon, but it'd be great to hear because she deals with it every day. Christ and I meet every once in a while on just our union relationship meetings, and same with Adam on the classified side. And we have a ton of new policies coming in our next agendas. We'll break them up so we don't do them all at once. And then the pictures of a beam that our kids welded for one of our contractors for grading. It goes on a Mini X. So kids actually designed it, built it, and the individual was super impressed. We were highlighted on our Indigenous Peoples Day in the COSA Expedition, which is kind of an honor that Brent has put together. Meet with regional superintendents. I did my ride with Roy finally. as I call it. Got all the back roads of the school district covered and saw some country. Our high school leadership folks, our kids are doing shopping for Christmas presents for our disadvantaged students. Our elementary is doing a food can drive, and we have the end of semester all wrapping up mid-January. And so, that's the kind of stuff that I look at, and it takes a little bit of time and effort, but it's good learning for kids and that giving spirit in that process. I learned at the COSA law conference that school board members are mandatory reporters. So I just put that out there. Didn't know if you guys knew that. But I don't know if that requires you to go through the same training that we go through, but that's online, I think, in Vector. So if you'd add that in August, we'll add that for you guys. And then I just want to make sure that in April assured me that we bring in training for you guys on how to run public meetings and what's appropriate and what's not in a public venue. And then we'll need 1 or 2 board members to help me review the construction proposals as we get going on those RFPs that went out in that process. Also, we will probably need to, so we have stuff in play, we have stuff that's getting ready to play, and then we have the RFP that's out there for the big stuff. I may need a 15-minute special meeting between now and the holiday, just to approve a contract on the pavilion down here. I didn't have it today, but I wanted to go through it, make sure it's there. So we need to maybe circle up on that and get that approved so we can get some permits and things under the wire for the first of the year.
Is that like an executive session? Or?
No, it can be just a special meeting where it can be a single item piece. So we may, if you can attend virtually, it'll be pretty low key, and I'll make sure I got everything to you beforehand in that process. The other piece that I have out there that we've been working on today is we had the feedback from the 100-day results. And so I also linked this in that goal tracker, so it all lives in one spot for you all. And so these are kind of the graph questions. You have the hard copy of all the narrative comments, because as you see when I put it on the slide, it got really, really small. But this is a new superintendent, taking time to learn about my school department or program. People generally feeling pretty good about that. And these results will all be linked in that same document as well. Visible and present at events and classroom engaging learning process. Feel pretty good about the progress we're making there. The district generally headed in the right direction. I think seemed strong. I think we've got some people that are kind of neutral, waiting to see what really happens, which is totally expected. Getting to know our employees, engaging with all staff, seems generally positive, but got some work to do on that one as well. And this was all staff, so certified, classified. I'm probably weak on evening custodians, unless I catch them on a board meeting night or something like that. So continue to grow that one. Staff and students are more accountable under the new superintendent and his leadership, generally moving in the right direction. And then when I tried to put all the narrative comments, that's what it came through at. So I gave you hard copies of those that you can read through. One of the things that I did do with leadership today is they worked with groups, and they themed out for me kind of what was going from their perspective. I've done that same thing independently, and they gave me some feedback on what their thoughts were, because they kind of know their staff and coworkers in that process. So we'll take that and continue to do the work we were doing, that process. So questions on any of that? I welcome any feedback from you all as well. Okay.
Thank you. right, next up, we have our student report.
So, like Mike said, there isn't a lot that's happened between our last meeting and now since we were on break, so I don't have as much as I usually do. But for athletics, our wrestlers had a tournament in Tillamook and they won, which is pretty great. We have our boys and girls basketball. Our girls are actually playing right now, and our fingers are crossed for them. They've been having a few games. For school and community activities, one thing that I wanted to mention, not entirely school-based, but our Restoration Day celebration at the Tribe at the Spear Mountain Casino. That was really great. We saw a lot of familiar faces with students and staff, so it was really nice to kind of have that connection that we're still trying to form. It was great to see those people that we recognized. And not a lot for school and community activities. We do also have our blood drive that's happening on Wednesday with our health department. And that'll be at the gymnasium. I believe it's between 9 and 2:30. Anybody's welcome to come in and donate. For our leadership team, we always get kind of busy around this time of the year because with December, you know, we are stuck between breaks and we're trying to raise money for Shop for a Student, and we got a lot going on. So our dog jams, we had it originally scheduled for the 5th, but that's getting postponed because we need to get a few more acts. And so right now, we're really trying to raise money in any way we can. We're taking donations, either contacted through Mrs. Overfield or through the office, I believe. We're raising money. We have our National Honor Society students also trying to pitch in. Everybody's really trying to get as much money as we can so that way we can actually give as much as possible to those students that really want that magical Christmas. We are currently at around $1,100. Our like top goal, best case scenario, we want to raise up to $3,000, but we do think we'd be able to possibly stretch it, but make it by $2,000. And the high school is also doing a food drive with the advisories. So it's for the Grand Sharamina. I can never get that right. The Grand Sharamina Food Bank. And Mrs. Overfield tried to tell me how many cans we've collected, but her text didn't go through. So I don't have that number, but we've been trying. It's kind of hard to get advisory things shown through with our new schedule. Everyone's still kind of adjusting to that, especially with the short schedules. We have our Spirit Week for meeting up to Christmas break. It'll be the last week we have before we go out. It's just a small Christmas break. We'll have our door decorating competition and we'll have our dress up days. Otherwise, we're still continuing our math club with Mr. Shirts. That's every Monday after school. And we have Native Club with middle and high schoolers. Middle school is every one Wednesday of every month. And high school is one Thursday every month. Any questions?
Thank
Just
you.
got to plug our girls wrestling one too. First.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Cool. Okay, next up we have Rebecca and Mike.
And then the staff reports. So if you remember, we've gone elementary, middle, high, and now I'm bringing in some of our other folks that are dealing with some different departments. And they actually rock, scissors, paper. Oh, go ahead.
That way I can control.
Okay. Who was going to go first?
She wants to control.
So the TAP folks won first, and then I think Brent goes, and then Sean.
Okay. Llahayim canwy tlachsta is Rebecca Arredondo, Nika Yahol, Kelpuya, Ili, Ukut. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Arredondo, and this is Kelpuya Land. And I am here with Mike Solom, and we're going to talk about TAP and attendance in Willamina. We are the TAP advocates. Again, my name is Rebecca Arredondo. I have been a TAP advocate since the beginning of the program. This is my 9th year in this position. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher here for 10 years and even did all my student teaching here as well. Who are you?
I don't have my script in front of me, so I'm not even going to try that. Mike Solom, been here a little over 2 months. Really excited about joining the family in Willamina. Part of that, I was administrator for a lot of years, and no, just it's a great opportunity. It's you have great kids and great staff and good community. So I kind of go back. My mom actually grew up here, so a little bit of family. Going to the coast, we always had to stop by the old house, Willamina. So we had to make our trek through Willamina. So that was fun. Rebecca, she's been doing it forever, and so she's going to kind of run the show. I'll kind of just throw in a couple things here and there if you guys want or she wants, and that is just your show.
And I'm based mostly at the elementary school, and he was hired to focus on the middle and high school. So today we're going to talk with you about what is TAP, a few definition of terms, what are we doing, look at some data, and then next steps. So TAP came to be from an initial study produced by the Chalkboard Project, which looked at a variety of things, including attendance, and it broke down attendance by ethnicity and race. And it found that our Native American students across Oregon were attending school the least amount of any of the ethnicities and races when it broke it down, which gave the Oregon Department of Education some hard data in order to fund this original pilot project, the Tribal Attendance Pilot Project. With that, it has, this is its 9th year, so it has turned from a pilot project into a promising practice. And it is a partnership between tribes and school districts. So all of the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon got to choose a school district to work with. And then together they collaboratively wrote up the grant and hired a TAP advocate or 2. So there were 9 initial sites, and in the last couple of years they've added an urban site in Salem-Keizer, and that works both with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde as well as the Confederated Tribes of Siletz. And of course, we here are working with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. TAP's focus is really about addressing the root causes of chronic absenteeism, or why students are not coming to school, and reducing those barriers. It's counterintuitively, it's not just about getting kids to school. It's about understanding why students are not coming to school. And specifically, because TAP's focus is on our Native students, understanding that historic trauma, the generational trauma of boarding schools, and how that impacts our students and families today. TAP has more of an emphasis, brings more emphasis and integration of Native and Indigenous cultures within schools at all of the TAP sites. So that's also part of the focus of TAP. In our school district, we have around 34% of our students who are American Indian Alaska Native. So a few definition of terms. We have AIAN, which is American Indian Alaska Native, AIAN Plus, and tribally enrolled. So American Indian Alaska Native students are students who on their school registration just mark American Indian Alaska Native and no other race or ethnicity. The reason why we're pointing this out and that's important is because if a student marks any other race or ethnicity, then in the data of like the state and federal data, they get lumped into multiracial or under the Hispanic umbrella, and they are no longer counted as Native. So TAP has really brought a focus onto this hidden data part, and we're really have been working with the state and mostly with the state on rectifying that, or how do we look at the data differently? And that's where AIAN Plus comes into play. Those are the students who are marked American Indian Alaska Native and another race, or under Hispanic as well. And so that is kind of that category. Tribally enrolled, I bring that up mostly because there's a new thing that we are reporting on this year. I know in TAP we're reporting on, I think at the state or district level, we're starting to report on that. And that is a slightly different thing that you'll hear probably more about as time goes on. And those are students whose families within the school registration process, mark that they have a tribal enrollment number from a federally recognized tribe. In that moment, they do not have to prove that they are tribally enrolled. That's under Title VI. That's a little bit different, and we can go into that later at some point if you're interested. But this is under the registration process. So that is another category where we will be reporting on in TAP as well, in TAP data. I want to also bring attention to the difference between average daily attendance, or ADA, and chronic absenteeism. So average daily attendance is most of the data that you've been seeing from principals reports, school reports. Those things look at the school level measure and not the student level. So it notices things kind of in moments in time. So, oh, at this day or in this time frame, this amount of people are kind of showing up. But it masks the individual student chronic absences. So when we look at chronic absenteeism, it looks at individual students. Who is not showing up regularly? What is the number of students who are not showing up regularly? And chronic absenteeism also counts all absences. So excused, unexcused, suspensions, everything. Any time missed from school counts under chronic absenteeism. And that actual definition is missing 10% of the school year. So in Willamina, that's as missing as few as 1.5 to 2 days every month adds up to a student being chronically absent, which does not sound like a lot. Missing 2 days a school month, that's not much. That will add up to a student being chronically absent. When we look at the idea of chronic absenteeism and then the strategies addressing that, it emphasizes the impact of missed days and the benefits of being present. It uses preventative problem-solving, trauma-sensitive strategies, and it cultivates family and student engagement. So this is in kind of opposition to truancy and unexcused absences and going to court and all that. Of course, why do we focus on chronic absenteeism? As you probably know, when students miss a lot of school, there are academic gaps and in performance. It is a high predictor of students dropping out of high school. And of course, if students are not completing high school, they have a higher likelihood of having employment problems or lower health quality overall later in life. And again, missing as few as 1.5 to 2 days adds up to a student being chronically absent in Willamina. And that's just 16.5 days in our school year because we only have 166 school days. Now, we talked a lot about chronically absent and chronic absenteeism. That we're going to flip it a little bit. So chronically absent is a little bit more deficit look at data. We like to talk about regular attenders. That is the more positive lens. And so we're going to jump into data in a minute and talk a little bit more about our regular attenders. But before we get there, kind of as TAP advocates, some kind of bigger overarching things that we've been doing so far.
Well, Rebecca's been doing a lot of this stuff for a long time. And so, building those connections and those relationships, so those are key. Those are paramount to anything you try to do at school, as you guys all know. We're both focusing on a weekly attendance team meeting at the grade school and then one at junior high school. Have this once a week. We have our weekly TAP internal meetings. We kind of, throw ideas off each other, things like that, what's working, what's not working. We have our monthly meetings with, the CTGR academic advisors. We have our monthly TAP advocate meetings. That's Rebecca and I, and then Sarah sometimes shows up for those as well.
And it's across
and it's the statewide deal. And then, of course, the data justice meetings with Willamina TAP team. That's just kind of our ongoing, looking at the data and what's working, and we share kind of thoughts and different, things that we've done to try to influence kids and things like that. And then also we're really trying to focus, especially, this is more me than what Rebecca's already got all this stuff in place, but at the junior high school, I'm really trying to show some visuals so we can have some class competitions and, get kids excited about wanting to be at school, but also not just wanting to be here because they're going to perform better, but also get here so they can actually receive some sort of a prize. So a little motivator, just kind of working on that. Some of the specific things that I'm doing here at the middle school and high school, like I said, it's just a snapshot. like, first of all, I got to get to know the kids. I mean, without getting to know them, I mean, cold calling kids and families, it's not going to mean anything. Like I started today, as a matter of fact, calling we have a lot of AIAN kids and other kids on, online at home, and we call that SOAR. And so I've met with Heather, and we're trying to call those kids and, touch base with them, and then, set up goals for what they're going to accomplish that day. And then the following day, we're going to have another follow-up call to that call and see how they're, or how they progressed, or, if they're, what hiccups they had, that kind of thing. And so that in itself will not only create those connections, but also help impact positively their attendance, because statewide, according to the statute, as long as there's communication and they're showing some sort of production, you can count them as being present in school. So those numbers are going to hopefully drastically improve in those areas. Rebecca and I both, constant student family check-ins, offering supports. I mean, one day I had a mom call me up. She had a flat tire around 18, and so I went out and helped her fix her tire. Actually, I couldn't because her spare wasn't any good, so we had to go into Sheridan, and then I took her back afterwards. So anyway, that all worked out. So little things like that. I'm facilitating this is what Rebecca's done for years, and at the elementary, she talks to kids all the time, but I really wanted to get the student voice. At the junior high and high school, we started with just the high school kids today, and I'm using Adam's class as kind of a sounding board. And I just went in there and just said, hey, what are some ways or things that would make the school a bit more comfortable and inviting for you guys that want to be here? And then how can we, be a little bit more culturally representative of, your heritage? And, what thoughts do you have? And so we're going to have these meetings about once a week. And of course, I'll provide food for them. And that's always a good, something to get them talking a little bit. But another thing that's been pretty impactful is getting to know these kids, and then I'm making individual goals with these kids, not only about with their attendance, but just about, their academics and things like that. So those are just some specifics. There's others, but I'll stop at that.
In the elementary school, some things that I've been doing, off and on for many years now, monthly attendance incentives. Kids can earn brag tags and actual little prizes. We did a whole VIP lunch seating the other month. And if you had perfect or outstanding attendance, you got to come and sit in special with tablecloths and flowers and got a little after dinner mint. And that was really fun. I do videos for classrooms and for families that go out and post. For the classrooms, I do weekly or every other week. I talk about attendance. I talk about culture. I try working in Chinook. We have weekly classroom competitions with these giant trophies, and the 3 classrooms who have the best collective attendance get to have the trophy that week, and that travels around the school. And like Mike was saying, we do student and family check-ins. I have individual incentives and charts and supports for students and families. We've done home visits. Transportation supports if a student misses the bus and has no other way of coming to school, and then I know about it and get permission from the family, I can go out and pick up that student and bring them in. And of course, collaborating with the tribe for our families on supports and resources as well. So we're going to look at some data. We have here, we're kind of going back in time. Thank you. Things get small up here too. So we're going to pass out things. It's the same info, but you can kind of see the numbers a little bit better. This is looking at the previous 2 years. So when we look at data with TAP, we look at kind of 3 ways we break it apart. We look at the whole population, so the whole school or the whole grade level or whatnot. How are they doing? And then we break it down into what are our AIAN plus students? How are they doing? And how are our non-native students doing? And it's important for us to look at that and differentiate, because there has been historically a gap between our AIAN plus students and our non-AIAN plus students. And so we are looking, and our jobs is really to close that gap. So you can kind of see the last couple of years and how that's been going. It is post-COVID, and we're all kind of still rebounding from that, but that is kind of where we are from the previous 2 years. This is where we are currently as of last Friday. When we look at the cumulative regular attender data by school, and again, it's broken into those 3 categories, and we have the elementary, the middle, and the high school, and the attendance. The number of regular attenders, or the percent of regular attenders, again, we're looking at that versus the percent of attendance. Moving on, we have the attendance tiers by school. So again, this is now breaking it down to, okay, here's our group of students. How many are regular attenders? They have 90.1% attendance or higher. Anything below 90% or below is considered chronically absent. They've missed already 10% of the school year. And then we can break it down, of course, into smaller categories. That 85 to 90% are our yellow kids. They're really close to not being chronically absent, close to being regular attenders. Then we have our orange from 80 to 85%, and anything below 80% is red. And again, this is specific numbers of students, the number of students in each category. Before we go on, there's kind of a lot, and there's a lot of data. If you have any questions now, we'd be happy to talk about them, or in the future, if you digest this and think of things later, we're always around and we'd love to chat with you too.
And if these numbers don't actually improve, I want you to show me the door immediately. So I'm throwing it out there right there. Okay.
I think important for the board to know is what we've been working on with these guys, and they're doing a great job with it, is when you look at, elementary, and you see in that first column, there's 25 kids that are in that red, and we know their name, and we're getting those stories behind them. And so we're starting to see improvement, but I think that also I would say some of the ways they look at data and the way we report it, there's a lot of different ways out there. So it doesn't quite jive with what's on the goal tracker, because that's a different way we report it to the state. But to me, those 25 kids are below 80% already. And so if they continue on that trajectory, they will miss quite a bit of school this year.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how we compare statewide?
To where we are in our tiers right now?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't.
Or like
I've looked at that data, the past few years, and everybody is very, very low.
Yeah.
I mean, after COVID, it's been kind of an ongoing issue, I guess, for lack of better words. So, yeah.
And again, kind of going back to how data is reported to the state, the tricky part is we get very detailed, and I would say our data is better than the state data because of the way you report and the time frames, and again, that lumping of students under multiracial and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Kind of moving forward with our TAP goals. In addition to continuing doing all the different things that we've talked about, we do have a goal to do empathy interviews. Part of that is with our students and listening to them, but it's also with our families, and specifically our Indigenous families. And so we have a meeting upcoming this week. I think we're going to dive deep into those goals, and then how do we kind of structure that and do that? Do we have group times out of the tribe or at the school and at different times and what days and how are we inviting people and that kind of a thing. But that is coming up. Mike and I are working on setting up times to regularly visit different programs at the tribe, including the youth ed after school programs and the Shawash Ila'i school, not only to continue to build relationships with our students outside of school and families, but also to hopefully learn some more Chinook and more culture and things as well. And we're also working on forming a district attendance team that will meet regularly and attend the Willamina Education Service District's community of practice, so that we can also look district-wide and make some district-wide attendance goals and action plans as well. And there's lots more, but I'm going to stop talking because I could talk forever. Do you guys have any other questions or anything else? Okay, we really appreciate your time. Hayumasi, many thanks.
We'll bring you back in May.
Sure.
Show us the end game.
Yeah. Sorry, sorry, Richard, what would you like me to do with
Yes, sir.
I'll let
Oh,
I
you
know
mean
it's
it's
the-
happened
first.
It's
And
the
then,
whole-
no, I'm not up here. I'm gonna let them
The whole
clear out.
internet
the
is Zoom, YouTube thing.
You guys presenting on the slide?
No, I don't have a slide. I have in your guys' packet, you should have, I see David has it out. Rough, it looks like that. For those of you who don't know me, I am, Brent Morrell. I know lots of you here. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. We have some school safety initiatives that I'm pretty happy with, all the work we've done so far this year, and I'll just kind of briefly run through the bullet points. Interrupt me, wait for a good stopping point. If you have questions, whatever you need, I'm here to answer it. If I can't answer them, I'll try and find the answer and get it to you later. First thing on there is vector training, as Mr. Gass talked about earlier. That is an online training portal that we use for all staff members. Before it was very antiquated. It was watch a YouTube video, then email your admin that you watched the video on whatever the subject happened to be. This is a lot more user-friendly for myself, for all of our staff. They each have a login. They have videos that are assigned to them by myself, and we can track on there. So it'll say like, so-and-so watched the video, they completed their tests, they have 2 more to go. So it's just a really easy, great way to kind of not waste anybody's time, but also get the videos that that we need them to watch. The 4 that we currently have them doing is on bullying. So it's just kind of an anti-bullying signs to look for. Cybersecurity, which I know Mr. Booker is very happy that we added that one. Just not getting caught up in phishing scams or anything like that. It could be like ransomware, bloodborne pathogens. That's one that we've had to do for a while. And then child abuse reporting, which is what Mr. Gaff talked about. Not sure if we'll have to create you guys vector accounts, but it's quite easy to do so. So if that happens, we'll make sure and get that done. Number 2 on here, ODE, School Safety and Emergency Management Walkthrough. I was on a training, this was back in September, with this group. And at the end of the meeting, they said, hey, if you ever want us to come out to your school and do a walkthrough with you, just let us know. So I emailed them right away. And a week later, I think they came out to our campus. It was 2 gentlemen. And they spent the whole day with us. And essentially, it wasn't like they were looking for anything. They weren't looking to kind of hammer us on anything or what we weren't doing. They were just there to help. Low cost to no cost solutions on just things that we might not see that they are kind of trained to see, that we can make the school a safer place. Some of the things listed on there was updated fire maps. This is my first year kind of in this position. When I went around to a lot of classrooms, there were some just had blank piece of paper in the corner where the fire map was. Some had a map of the school with no designation on where the classroom was. So we were behind on that. So I made sure and made some updated fire maps, got them to the entire district. So now they kind of have that. An updated visitor badge system. This is something April and I have talked about. We have a lot of different people that come through our school, whether it's with the CTE department, our travel tutors, just people that are working in here. And we talked about kind of creating a system of badges that a certain color might mean a certain thing. If you have an orange badge, it might mean that you are a contractor from outside. If you have a yellow badge, you're a parent. If you have a white badge, that means you're volunteering out in the CTE building. So it's just another way that staff, if they see somebody with a badge on, they can, oh, okay, they're working on the wiring, or they're doing something like that. Just a way to kind of make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable on who we're letting into our own school. Line of sight stickers. These are things that I'll kind of talk about a little bit more down when we talk about our SRPs and active training drills or active shooter drill. But what these are essentially are is when you go into our classroom, we have lots of windows, especially down at the elementary. And what these stickers do is you put them in certain spots that JJ and I are going to kind of go through, and it'll show where the line of sights are from the outdoors. So that way you say you have a sub in the building and we go into a lockdown. They might not know exactly where to put the kids. So that way the people on whoever's outside won't be able to see them, which is something that I never really thought of, but it's an easy, no cost solution that JJ and I can just walk around the campus, kind of get in there and see what the line of sights are, and it'll just make everybody feel a little more comfortable. And then lock blocks, I'm going to save that because you can see that at the bottom. 3 new AEDs. So we now have a total of 6. Before that, we had 1 outside the high school gym. We had 1 inside the multi-purpose gym. And then we have a traveling one that goes, if sports teams want to check them out, football team, track team, more of the outside sports. If they have an issue down there, they don't have to come all the way back up to get one. We have a traveling one. We added 3 new ones that are roughly outside each school's office. So 1 outside the elementary office, 1 outside the middle school office, then 1 outside the high school office. We want them a little more centrally located because say you have a teacher in this classroom that has an issue or something, they're going to have to go all the way down to the high school gym, grab the AD and bring it all the way back. So when we started looking at it, it was just our campus is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as I'm sure you guys are all knowing. So we have to modify and adapt to our safety measures. So we got 3 new AEDs that we placed. Staff CPR classes, board policy says that you have to have 1 staff for 60 kids CPR trained. And when I started asking questions, started looking around, nobody could really tell me who was or wasn't, or when the last time they got certified. So Mr. Barnett reached out to the fire department and got me in contact with Jennifer Colton down there. And on October 11th, during statewide in-service, we actually in this library held a CPR class through the fire department, had roughly, let's say 28 staff members. So we were well above our quota on how many we were required to have at each building level to be CPR trained. And this is something that I'm hoping, and I'm talking with Jennifer as doing yearly or bi-yearly, just kind of making sure that we're constantly keeping up with this. So that way we don't run into a situation where we need CPR and we hadn't trained staff in several years. So this will be something that we will continue on as the year go on. And then lock blocks, I added a picture because it's a little difficult to explain, but what you can see on there, they're attached to all the doors, interior doors in our district. And essentially that little rubber dowel will prevent the door from fully closing. So you'll have the outside handle lock. The rubber dowel will prevent the door for closing so that students, anybody can come in and out of the classroom. And then the event of emergency, you slide that dowel over and the door just instantly closes. So you don't have to worry about locking the doors. You don't have to worry about fumbling for your keys. You don't have to worry if you're a sub and we're never given keys. It's just another security measure that we can use that will keep the classroom locked, we'll keep it safe, and it was very cheap in the grand scheme of things and very simple to use. On the next, any questions? Like I said, interrupt me, let me know if there's any clarifying questions. Next page is just stuff that we have coming up. Safer Watch, it's a mobile app that a lot of schools in this area are going to. And what it would do is it would be on all the staff's phones, and it's basically a panic button. So if it's geofenced to our campus, so the entirety of our entire campus, and somebody sees somebody with something poking out of their back pocket and it looks like a gun or is a gun, they can just hold that button and it'll instantly alert law enforcement. So it'll go straight to their dispatch center and then the cavalry's coming. So it's very just quaint, it's very quiet. They can do it in their pocket. And then there's also several other buttons on there for like a medical emergency, a fire emergency, or a police emergency are the 4 main ones. And then it also has a really cool feature called Admin Assist, where let's say you had a kid run. You're in the classroom, they just took off out your door. All you do is you just hold that Admin Assist button. Your admin in your building are going to get an assist. You type in so-and-so ran on the playground. All the admin are going to come running, or they can claim the thing. So it's a really cool app. We haven't unveiled it yet because since the entire county essentially is using it, we wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page on processes and protocols and with the fire department and the police station and everything. So that's something that's going to be coming down the line, but we do have it. Tomorrow we have a lockdown drill. What that's going to look like on here, it says we're going to go through the whole thing. We decided after this was already put out that we're only going to do lockdown. So we'll just go into our lockdown drill. Lock blocks will come in very handy because the teachers can just slide it out of there because we treat it like a real thing. So you will see an increased officer up here. We have Grand Ron Tribal Police coming up and Yamhill County Sheriffs, and we'll do these. We usually do them twice a year, and it's just something that we hope we never have to do, but something we have to. Sexual abuse prevention training, Monday, January 6th. So we have somebody from PACE, which is our liability insurance, coming out and giving a training to all of our teachers. They'll do an elementary session and then a middle high session. I'm not exactly sure what they'll get into just because this would be the first time that we're doing it, but it's just something that it's not about it being accusatory or not that we have an issue or anything like that. It's just more of things that teachers need to look for to make sure that they're not putting themselves in that situation where it could potentially get that way.
Also helps us on our insurance rate.
Yes, I believe it gives us a little bit of a discount on our insurance rate. So you're welcome. Traffic guards at crosswalks. This is something that we're constantly trying to figure out as a parent. I know that drop-off pickup can be quite hectic. So we're always looking at ways, and we are getting there, I promise. But that's something that we talked about putting out there potentially where the middle school, if you turn left and you go down the hill, there's that crosswalk right there, and then the one right in front of the building. We got some signage, increased signage. We've already bought a couple of signs that will go in those crosswalk areas, and then we're looking at new stop signs, more directional signs for the back of the school. It can get a little hectic back there with the gravel parking lot and knowing where the turnaround is. So that's something that we are also working on and will get better at, I promise. Safety committee meetings. That's another OSHA law that you have to have a safety committee when you have an organization above a certain amount of employees. So that is something that we will be starting in January. What it'll look like, I don't know exactly yet because this is kind of be my first time doing it, but it'll be something where we'll meet monthly, we'll do site walkthroughs, and it's something that if somebody sees something, the sidewalks chipped out there, you see a beehive, that is the committee that will kind of make sure that it's getting taken care of. District marketing material. Mr. Gass and I have recently been talking about, this isn't exactly safety, but creating more marketing material for our district, attracting new staff, new students even. A lot of students these days don't just go to the home district they went to for their entire career. They end up venturing out, they go to different places. So something that we really want to kind of do is highlight all the cool things that we have going on at the school. From what Mike and Rebecca talked about, our programs and our CTE building and our sports and our just everything that we have going on right now. We want to make sure we get it out beyond the walls of our community. So that is something that keep an eye out for. And then at the bottom, those are the line of sight stickers that I talked about. That's what they look like. So if teacher, kids see that, they know they can go there, and that'll be a safe from the outside line of sight. Yes, sir.
Add handicapped. There's nothing that points to the back for handicapped.
Oh yeah, we don't even have handicap, the poles or anything like that. No. Oh, on the high school side, yeah.
But there's no sign out front when you drive up the hill. I was told there is. You look at that sign.
Thank you.
There is no sign
No sign pointing to where the spots are.
that you can turn right.
Available that way.
Yeah.
Direction of the handicap porch.
There's one in front of the middle school now. And I think it has a sign on it. And the ones back on the backside of the gym have signage.
So that one going to the back.
If you're new and have never been here,
Great point.
you have no idea, you're coming to the gym for a sports event, there's no signage that says you have handicap parking back there.
Great point.
Until you get there and go, oh.
Yeah, and then you're going. There it is.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, I am done.
There should be safety committee notes somewhere.
And I think I still got the committees from 2016.
Yeah,
The last ones that you could find.
that's 2 years after I retired. Oh.
All right, everybody. So I'm going to shift now into our kind of social, emotional, behavioral health data. My name is Sean Draper, and I'm the SEL coordinator for the district. I've worked as an elementary teacher here, a middle high school administrator, and I've also been a school counselor in the Salem-Keizer School District. And so I'm going to kind of go through a series of things in this agenda, and I'm really hoping not to go too long here. But I had to share, I think, the data that I brought up just to kind of prove some points and give the accurate stuff for you guys to see. So I do want to address trauma a little bit. Trauma is something that really over the last, I'd say, probably about 8 years or so in schools, there's been a lot more development, research, professional development around trauma. And when we look at some of the behaviors and the mental illness that our students are experiencing, we can a lot of times, that is an element of that. I'm going to talk about ACEs. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. So if you haven't heard that, basically it's highlighting trauma. I'm going to highlight some national data, some state data, our data, our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support for our behavioral and mental health. And then our tiers that go along with that, and then our support staff that we have. So a couple of these slides, I'm just going to forewarn you, they're not the most visually appealing, and I am going to read, but I didn't know any other way to kind of convey some of this stuff. So I'm just going to read here for a second. So children who suffer from childhood traumatic stress are those who have been exposed to one or more traumas over the course of their lives and develop reactions that persist and affect their daily lives after the events have ended. Traumatic reactions can include a variety of responses. So this is where when we see some of the behaviors in school and I read these, we see these. So intense and ongoing emotional upset, depressive symptoms and anxiety, behavioral changes, difficulties with self-regulation, problems relating to others or forming attachments, regression or loss of previously acquired skills, attention and academic difficulties, nightmares, difficulty sleeping and eating, physical symptoms such as aches and pains. Older children may use drugs or alcohol, behave in risky ways, or engage in unhealthy sexual activity. Without treatment or intervention, Repeated childhood exposure to traumatic events can affect the brain and the nervous system permanently, and increase health risk behaviors. Research shows that childhood trauma survivors can be more likely to have long-term health problems or die at an earlier age. Traumatic stress can also lead to increased use of health and mental health services and increased involvement with the child welfare and juvenile justice systems. Adult survivors of traumatic events may also have difficulty in establishing fulfilling relationships and maintaining employment. So hopefully that's the most like reading I'm going to do with you guys today. But again, I want just to make it known that we found that trauma really does have significant and often lasting impacts on human beings, okay, in the brain. When I talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, this is kind of the trauma that I'm talking about. And if you look down at the bottom, and I'll read it to you, but basically I kind of had a little star there. The more ACEs a person experiences in their lifetime, the greater potential for negative physical, mental, and social health outcomes in adulthood, okay? So we're talking about things like abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. We're talking about neglect, right? Those basic things, those basic needs that we all have. Physical neglect, like food, clothing, shelter. Emotional neglect, like the affection, support, attention we all need. And then you have the household challenges, parental substance abuse, parental mental illness, parental separation or divorce, incarceration of a household member, witnessing domestic violence or poverty. Okay, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list to give you an idea of those ACEs, those traumatic events that can have those impacts on people. So just a very quick snapshot here. So adolescent mental health in the US was worsening prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. You often hear people talk about COVID, this is why our kids are really struggling, which is true. But I want you to be aware that prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, rates of mental illness, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, suicide were skyrocketing in our youth, okay? This all started kind of in the, I'd say around 2010-ish, just from all the data that I've gathered. And it's happened to our younger students all the way through our older students. Okay, the number of adolescents reporting poor mental health is increasing. In 2023, this is high school, 4 in 10 students, 40% had persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. In 2023, 2 in 10, 20% of students seriously considered attempting suicide, and nearly 1 in 10 attempted suicide. That's high school, okay? Youth with poor mental health may struggle with school and grades, right? We kind of already know that. Decision-making, and just their overall health, okay? Mental health problems often go hand in hand with other risk behaviors, the drug use, the experiencing violence, the high-risk sexual behaviors, unintended pregnancy, STDs. Because many health behaviors and habits are established in adolescence that will carry over into adult years, it's really important for us to intervene when they're young, right? We want to establish these good health habits. And when I used to teach health with my 5th graders, they had a triangle, but I almost like to think of it as a chair, like mental, physical, social, and emotional health, the 4 legs. If any of those legs are struggling, the chair is going to fall. Okay, and I think of that way with our overall health as well, and with our youth and what we're trying to address here. So state data, I have a lot here for you. You can see. That's on purpose, actually. There's a website. So what this is this is from 2022, but I liked the way that it was presented. And so what this map shows is the prevalence of basically severe mental illness in our youth and the resources that the state provides. And if you look here, Oregon, if you can't see it, is ranked 45th. In other words, we have a really high prevalence of youth with mental illness, okay, behavioral health issues, and not a lot of resources to address them, okay, 45th. Now, as we go down, students who have experienced, or youth who have experienced at least one major depressive episode, which if you look at a major depressive episode, that's a period of at least 2 weeks When a person experiences a depressed mood, loss of interest, pleasure in daily activities, majority of specified symptoms such as problems with sleep, eating, energy, concentration, or self-worth. So if you look at Oregon here, we're dead last. Okay, dead last. 18% of the youth that experienced at least one major depressive episode that year. Now you go to prevalence. So
If you say last, we're the worst.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Make sure we clarify that.
According to this, and this is the a national mental health website. Now we have the prevalence. So the percentage of our students who experience major depressive episodes, again, 45th. So you're talking down near the bottom, 14%. And then when we talked about those ACEs and trauma and how those things can lead to high risk behaviors, and I can say in my time, at least in the last 7, 8, 9 years that I can think of, the rates of substance abuse and the increase of substance abuse. So if we look at Oregon here with youth and substance abuse, dead last. Okay, so again, I wanted to kind of share some of the data from a national and state level to show that we do have issues here, right? We do have data you guys are going to see where we do have high rates of mental illness, high rates of severe behavioral incidences here. But I also want to highlight that this is a societal issue that we're dealing with our youth. And it's something that I think we all need to come together and continue to address. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're doing that. So now as I look at just a snapshot of kind of some behavioral data, you guys can't see this and I apologize. I'll make it bigger, but I'll read it to you. So kind of boring stuff, but important stuff. So referrals, if we look at the last couple of years at the middle school, last year we wrote 219 discipline referrals. This year we're at 104. We're a little over a third of the way. So we're on pace to break that at the middle school. Number of students this year who have received suspensions, 37. I could have done number of suspensions, but that can kind of be misleading because of the amount of days that are given. Oftentimes you have a lot of the referrals are in a handful of students' hands. I guess it's the way I can say it. Like there's a small percentage that get a lot of them. So I think the number that I like the best is how many of them have received suspensions, 37 at the middle school. Referrals at the high school last year was 250, this year 44. So at that one, we're actually on pace to do better this year, or have less. Number of students who received suspensions at the high school so far this year is 24. Okay, again, number of students, and then some of those students have received a good amount. Number of detentions at the middle high school last year was 759. Number of detentions this year is at 380. So we're on that similar trajectory. Rise room. So our middle and high school rise room is kind of a catch-all for breaks for students. We do SEL instruction in there for our tier 2, tier 3 students. Sometimes it's a place for a student to reset. Sometimes it's a place for a student to compose themselves if they're having anxiety, those types of things. So our rise room, if you look last year, was entered by students over 2,000 times. So kids are using it, okay, for a reason. They're using it, they need it. And so far this year, we're at about 711, which is, again, kind of right on par with that number from last year. Because I think if we're about a third of the way, that's about a third of the way to the 2,200. Number of students who received suspensions at the elementary school last year was 22. This year we're at 13. Echo entries. Echo is a room here at the elementary school for students to do problem solving, to reset, maybe conflict resolution, and also some ISS. So number of students who are going to Echo last year was over 2,500 entries. Okay, that's the amount of kids who are going in, 2,500 entries. This year we're at 641. Okay, so quite a bit less, but there is a reason for that, a partial reason for that. And then if we look at relaxation station, that's the room here at the elementary school that's like really therapeutic. It's got stuff for calming kids. As you see last year was accessed over 6,000 times. Okay, that's a lot of kids accessing that. And then so far this year, we're at 2,500. So again, we're kind of right on par with that. The reason why our echo data is less than this year, at least part of it, is because we now have the WIN room down here, which is specifically for our tier 3 students, our students who need the most intensive support. And so now when those kids go somewhere, they're no longer going to echo, they're going to WIN. Okay, so just a little quick thing there. So DESA, I want to share some DESA data with you. The DESA is an assessment that teachers fill out on all of our students. And it kind of is an all-encompassing behavioral, mental, social, emotional assessment. It's a kind of a quicker snapshot. And then if a student falls in the need, they'll go back and they'll do a bigger assessment on that student to get some more data to where we can intervene more with them. If you look at the beginning of this year, this is where our kids are falling K-12. So this is a K-12 snapshot. Our teachers listed 59% in typical, 15 in strength. So this is obviously where we want our kids to be. So about 74% of our population at the beginning of this year fell in that category. And we have about a quarter of our population over here for need for instruction, or in other words, maybe have lagging skills when it comes to mental, emotional, behavioral health. So as we go, DESA data by grade. So this is kind of going a little deeper. So this one is the district level. Now as we look at grade level, okay? As you look at elementary school for the most part, right, you do have the bulk of the elementary school students according to teachers' data, okay, and their assessment, falling in that typical and the strength category, okay, with smaller percentages, right around 10 or less for the most part, falling in kindergarten with actually 0 at the beginning of the year, which is pretty awesome at the beginning of the year. And so these are really positive numbers, whereas you look at like middle high, we kind of have this gradual rise, and it's not that abnormal for once you hit about 11th grade to see it kind of trend back the other way. These numbers are obviously something that we want to continue to address. Okay, that's why we've implemented a lot of these things over the years to address mental health and behavioral health. But I do like the trend of what's coming up this direction, okay, or up through the schools. Something I thought was kind of interesting. So if you look at, again, middle high here, this is at the beginning of this year. Let's go to the beginning of last year. Okay, do you notice that it's very similar, that elementary, kind of the same, and then middle high are higher numbers, right? Okay, so that was at the beginning of last year. But then you go to the end of the year last year and look at all the numbers. Look how substantially how much they went down, with the exception of like a couple, I think kindergarten and 2nd grade. But I think every middle school grade went down, and high school. Okay, so what that told me was, even though those numbers were concerning at the beginning of the year, our interventions and the things that we were doing throughout the year made pretty significant progress. I mean, in most of those middle and high school grades, if you didn't see, we cut those rates in half in a school year. Now, why at the beginning of this year did we go back up to where we were? Well, I think there's a lot of factors for that. One, as we read earlier with ACEs and trauma, students can lose previously acquired skills. The other thing that's interesting is when we think about our own emotions and how our emotions impact our decisions, okay? When teachers are doing the assessment at the beginning of the year, how do they feel compared to the end of the year? It's just something to think about. I don't know. That could be a factor, okay? But that either way, if you just look at the data, okay, that was a very positive year last year. So I'm hoping this year we have the same results.
Yeah, I just need to track it by cohort too.
Right.
So you can see if you have that summer, which tells us we've got to maybe do some different things summer-wise.
And I will say, just working here, the last two, this year and last year, September and October, were tough. I mean, I don't know why, but I can only attribute it to maybe that loss of time at school for the most part, and then having to kind of regain that in the fall. So if we look at the end of last year, remember how earlier I showed you guys the slide that was like this? This is at the beginning of this year, okay? But if you look just a few months ago, at the end of last year, our numbers were actually pretty much where we want them, right? 85% of our kids in that typical and strong range, and about 15% that need that extra intervention. That's how you really want it to ideally look. So hopefully we'll get back there at the end of this year. So as we look at that data and we know we have kids here that need intervention. When I say MTSS, it's multi-tiered systems of supports. Here are the tiers. This is just kind of an easy way to show it. So when I say tier one is what we do for all of our kids. All of our kids access that. Okay, so tier one kids, really for the most part, kids who fit in a tier one, your universal ways of responding to behavior, mental health, things like that are going to work. Okay, that's how tier one works. Tier two, you're going to need some more targeted interventions. Okay, a lot of our tier two kids, they're going to receive maybe some extra accommodations like breaks. They're going to receive some small group instruction on some SEL stuff that they need to work on. Okay, and then you have tier three. Those are the intensive. Those are the ones that are in high need of support. Okay, and those students usually need more individualized instruction, very specified instruction on addressing lagging skills. So I'm not going to sit here and read all these. I'm just going to tell you, but I will kind of highlight a few. So elementary, myself and behavior staff and middle high have gone through and created our tier list. Some things that we offer within these are interchangeable. Okay, it's not like every time we wait to put a kid in counseling till they're here. Sometimes you recognize it earlier, but just for a quick list, you see that our tier one here for elementary, we have social emotional programs that we teach to our students, PACS, Ruler, Character Strong is our new one that we adopted this year that I think has been pretty well received. We have the Echo and Relaxation Station. Those are offered to all of our students. Okay, and then the DESA is what we use to, again, assess all of our students. And as you can see, like tier three, you're getting into more serious intervention, more individualized intervention. Same thing with middle high school. We used to use Ruler a lot more. We're kind of phasing it out. Maybe not phasing it out, but we're only keeping certain elements maybe. But for the most part, we're moving on to Wayfinder. That's the social emotional curriculum up at the middle high school. We still use the desk up there. And really the Rise Room, the best way I can explain the Rise Room up there is it's like a catch-all. It's the one room that we use that's kind of like the Win Room, Echo Room, and Relaxation in one. We do the best that we can within one room, okay? And then the last thing here is just I wanted to kind of highlight the behavioral and mental health support staff that we have at the level. So elementary, we have 2 administrators, 2 behavior specialists, 4 behavior IAs. Okay, those IAs specifically work in certain places though. 2 of them support in the Win Room with our tier 3 students down here. 1 supports in Echo, okay, with our tier 1, tier 2 behavior conflicts. And then 1 supports the relaxation station. And then they also have 1 counselor down at the elementary school. Yes.
But that's guidance counselor, right? Not a licensed school counselor.
It's a licensed counselor, but not a school counselor. You are right about that. Yeah. And then at the middle high school, we have 3 administrators, 2 behavior specialists, and 1 counselor. Same thing, a county counselor. So those are some things that we have in place to address our mental health, and I could go deeper into like our SEL programs so you guys know what specifically they're learning and stuff, but we don't have time and you don't want to hear me talk that much, I don't think. So questions, concerns about anything that you guys heard?
So I think I wonder is, you said they're using the Rise, but when I was subbing, sometimes I felt like they were kind of abusing. It was just an easy out. And so,
yeah,
I know you're juggling.
And I think it's, I think any of those resources, whether it be you offer a kid breaks, you let them go to the Rise Room. We're going to probably constantly try and fight that. That's K-12, right? We're trying to put maybe limits on that, and I can tell you just because I've had to deal with it and staff's had to deal with it, like, nope, you've already been in here, or you can kind of find out pretty quickly what their motive is. But you're right, Roy. That does happen. Avoidance, right?
Do you think kids are comfortable with the counseling that are coming from WSD? Because in school, we had an in-house counselor that I felt like the kids connected with. And
if I were to give you my honest answer, is the 2 counselors we have are really good. But we do have, there are limitations, right? A school counselor, just because I've been one, can see anybody at any time. They can do things, they can, whereas they have kind of other obligations too, because they work for the county. And from my understanding, I'm pretty sure you have to actually fill out paperwork and things to be on their caseload, whereas you don't have to do that for a school counselor.
right.
So there are some limitations there. The other part of it is, I know, like in an ideal world, I'd have one maybe for the middle and one for the high, so each school had one. Because I that's the one thing I didn't get that I wanted to, and I tried, but I wasn't able to get it. Their caseloads are a lot of kids. And so again, when we look at some of those mental health data, like, yeah, they have a ton of kids for one person to see. So something to think about.
Are you including students in special education as like tier 3, or is that a separate?
No, no. If it were academic and no, I'm not. Now, are some students on IEPs in our tier 2 and tier 3? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, there's plenty of kids that are on IEPs who don't have behaviors, so that's not really a telling sign.
I know it's not easy.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All
I
right.
think we've done a good job of systematizing our processes. Having lived in other places that weren't this structured, I think, it's one of the things I've been pleasantly surprised with around how we're dealing with kids and behavior, and how we can convene on an issue from a lot of different angles. So I know that was a hot topic last spring when I was interviewing. So I thought it was important for the board to really have a pretty good understanding of that vertical process and our different levels, and that it's not random. It's actually pretty highly systematized. And, I watch and learn from these guys as much on how to deal with some of these issues, because I've been out of it a while. So it's fun.
And if I can share this too, when I worked at Salem Kaiser in 2022, elementary school, almost exact same size, 3 rooms per pod per grade, almost, I think, 390 kids, like exactly the same. They only had 1 administrator, 1 behavior specialist. I was the counselor, and 3 behavior IAs. They didn't have a relaxation room. They didn't have they had little kind of reset rooms, but that was it. And so when I think about that, as far as what we have, the resources we have here, I don't know if you're going to find many more resources at a school our size. I really don't. So, but would I ever take more if you guys want to bring them in? Sure. Yeah.
I mean, maybe hire a school psychologist.
Which one?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Right. Accept our tribal report. Angie.
Hi. So November was a big month for us in terms of just our celebration for our restoration. So I wanted to second the gratitude for the staff that made it out. It was really nice to see them there at the event. I saw a lot of the kids excited to see them there at the event. So I appreciate those who took that time and were able to come out and share that celebration. It was big. It was well attended, probably 900-ish people in the room. So lots of celebrating went on throughout the month from preschool powwows to events and spirit weeks and all the things. So, and then we also had a lot of our closures because we have the closure for Restoration Day. We did not close the whole week of Thanksgiving, so we did offer some full day programming our students that were off school. But otherwise, that kind of sums up our November. Is mainly focused on restorations.
Wait, I gotta give you a shout out. So the Grand Ron Tribe has given every kid $25 for the book fair.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, today, I was like, kids were in there shopping like crazy. I'm like, wow.
On ROIs with the tribe.
Yeah.
Our recruitment and
From youth education.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was cool. Kids were fired up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Did you have anything to add for the school, Jesse, since you're here? I don't think so. Lots of restoration activities, lots of education around what restoration is, all the way down to our little preschoolers. So a lot of basic understanding about ancestors and all the things.
All right, next up we have audience time. Is there anything from the audience that they feel needs to come before the board that is not on the current agenda? Okay. Next up we have under reports and discussion, the drug testing policy.
This was put in here at the request of board member Guilty. Just to look at and review. My understanding is this kind of got put on hold during COVID. And there was, so you technically have this policy still in the books. However, we're not practicing this. And I think the discussion Roy wanted to have was, do we bring it back and when and if and how? And so it's really just a discussion item. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I know a couple of the schools, but I can't name them specifically that have continued the drug testing.
Amity's one.
Amity is one.
I know that for sure.
That's what Derek was saying. And then from some of the students, some of the graduates made comments to me that some of them have siblings and others don't, but they said it helped keep us doing the right things, knowing that we could be drug tested. And I thought, I think we should at least have a discussion on it. Everyone's dealing with, Eric says there's more vaping with our middle school kids and whatnot, high school. And the drug testing can only happen to student athletes. We can't drug test the normal population.
Correct.
That's
Yeah,
state law.
athletes are held to a
Higher standard.
or a lesser standard, like
Whatever.
more exposure.
Yeah.
They have less rights.
So anybody else got thoughts?
I would, personally, I'd be in favor of it. But I think just what those kids might have said is, it gives them a good reason not to do it if they want to continue
Right.
playing their sports. And it could change the outcome of their whole life. I mean, stay in school, stay clean, and keep playing your sport, or not play your sport and stick to what you're doing.
Is this something though that would have to we'd have to amend the budget to, because I'm assuming it's gonna
Not
be
in the budget.
expensive.
Yeah,
Not
you're
current
$30 a
budget.
kid, depending on what and how you do. I think more importantly, it would be probably something we would start. It's too late to start it, obviously, for that. You see, you got to give kids, essentially, you got to give time for any kid potentially to get clean. We would have to then structure. We want to add to Sean's plate and whoever else in our behavior world. We've got to be able to provide some opportunities and services. If a kid does come up hot because there's some processes in there that allow them to do some counseling or different things like that. I think that you do keep the kind of the kid that's on the fence on the right side of the fence, and I'm okay being the guy that allows them to say no in a bad situation. You are going to still have kids that push the limits and test it. We probably have parents that protest it. And so we would have to work through all those kind of pieces to educate our population of why. So, you might be looking at a fall implementation next year, which to Carly's point would be, what's the budget implication? In talking to other districts, I guess there's some folks out of Salem that'll come out and do the random piece. I've been in a district that we did hair testing, and that's a little different. So you're not, handling cups of urine all the time, and so, you can use it in different ways. I've held expulsions in advance if mom or dad family would sign off on a student, going into random testing. So I've used it as administrator that way to help the kids kind of stay on the right track, on the academic side. But Roy's right, you just can't randomly pick a kid out of the hall. But if I have a kid that, is coming from a resort community, this was a big problem because people go to resort communities to have a good time. And so our kids were around that. So I have some pretty in-depth background in all the pitfalls and things you run into with these kind of things that we would probably want to talk through. We're going to go down that road.
I think we charged a fee for the kids. Yeah.
We charged $35 a student per
sport.
I think it was per sport. I don't know if that was if you've been here since I've done it. It used to be per sport.
It was, yeah. Can I talk? Yeah, when we were in school, we had to, for each sport, we had to pay a fee for it. And then it was random I think it was every 2 weeks. But I will say we saw incidences where students get busted for that. And so for those of us that were playing sports and saw that, we knew there were repercussions for that. I would say our class was maybe a little bit weird in that we never really got in trouble for that because we were all athletes and we all played. But I do think if there's no expectations, then kids are going to meet you where that is. And so I wondered though, there was a contract that we'd have to sign to agree to it. Did that just get done away with before? Because parents have to sign the contract and students have to sign the contract. Right. So they both are aware that there's a potential of that happening as well as the consequences.
Yeah, I think we would want to educate our kids and our families up front.
Yeah.
Make sure it's very clear. One of the other things that I used as an incentive is if a student had gone through like all 4 years and when they got pulled or tested, or they were signed up all 4 years and they never came up hot. As the assistant superintendent, I would give them a letter that they could attach to scholarships that, hey, I was subject to this and never, and some scholarship folks like that, that process. So kind of incentivized, kids to stay in that game as well. I also had to talk to the chancellor at CU and explain to him why I was writing a letter of recommendation for a kid to get into CU because the kid had gone really south on me and came back and really came clean through the like 3 years and actually was an honors kid and was worthy of getting into their engineering program. And we had a great conversation about it. I go, he's a great recovery story, in that process. And, so they actually set that student up with people at the college to kind of check in with him to make sure he was being a good freshman, that process. So there can be some, positive things that come out of it. It's just how we kind of lens it and set it up.
So if we decided to look at this, and I know in here, I think it specifically says urine. So if we wanted to do hair, we'd have to amend this.
Yeah, and I would want to do some research. I know the hair has gotten more accurate, and hair is like a tree. It's like a tree ring. It tells you the story going back longer. Mm-hmm. Typically, what you weren't using hair for at the time was kind of an instantaneous positive. Hair takes you like 24 hours because it gets mailed out and you chain of custody and all that, where this company would go that comes in, I guess, would come in and pull those kids and they would tell you that day if they were eligible or not. So I'm totally cool going urine as long as I'm not that guy.
Sorry, I would caution too for native students, hair probably wouldn't be.
Well, and Angie and I have had a conversation on that about, what, 2 months ago?
Mhm.
Yeah, because that jumped to my brain right away.
And if there was an option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we would definitely have an option. I will tell you that hair is super accurate. I think that in cases of holding expulsions at abeyance and things like that, I've structured agreements with families that I can random test as long as I see that decrease over, so much time, that as a kid is clean enough. So with some counseling, different things. So, it can be an interesting tool on the discipline side, but this would strictly be on the athletic code of conduct. So if it's of interest and you want me to kind of start putting together some information on it, and get a little more formal, we can certainly do that. So we can look at it either spring or fall.
For currently for athletics, do they sign a contract stating that they won't, though, that they will be clean? Because I know I had to do that when I was in high school. We never got tested, but we signed a contract stating that we will.
I don't know.
We will abstain from all these other,
I don't think so.
drinking and smoking.
Yeah. The other reason I would probably wait till fall is because I'm switching athletic directors. Jerry's kind of made it known that he's going to retire at the end of this, and I would want that person to know coming in that we'll be working a lot together to get this right, because this is one you don't mess up on.
Yeah, and I think messaging would need to go out well before it's implemented, so parents, students are aware this is coming.
Yeah.
Carly, do you have any thoughts? Former student, athlete, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's what Justine said, and it was everyone. Like, I feel like everyone was tested at some point. Like, it wasn't just certain students that, maybe they had bias against. It was like literally everyone was tested at some point.
Carolyn almost every time.
Random.
Yeah. But,
Some
yeah,
felt like
I
it
think,
wasn't.
in theory, it's good to hold students accountable, but there's a lot of detail that needs, like the budget for one, and how much is this going to impact, that aspect, and messaging needs to come out to students and parents and the resources to what happens if you do fail, then what are we going to provide to students?
To Sean's point, it's like you live in a state with a lot of problems and not a lot of help.
Yeah.
For youth. And so, it's one of those that, and I will tell you, we had to rethink it at times because I had kids doing some pretty risky stuff to try to beat the system. They were making up all kinds of chemistry experiments, hanging dope down the neck of the gas tank, so the dog wouldn't hit it. It's the game got, I was like, let's kind of rethink some things at some points, but we can certainly look at it.
And we used to have drug dogs come through randomly from time to time. Is that ever, they talked about?
They don't really have, in talking to those guys, the marijuana kind of drug thing is, because it's legal now, we used to do it a lot more before it was legal, particularly in resort communities where I had well-resourced, highly unsupervised students. You could
well-resourced.
Yeah. But at this point, because it's so legal and so prevalent, they just really don't even waste the time.
I think too, given all the data that Mr. Draper just presented around trauma and mental health and how a lot of those kids self-medicate, we might be able to do some early intervention with kids if they happen to test them and get them some help early on, rather than, because some kids are pretty quiet, their ACEs scores you wouldn't know. And so I think it might also be a way to have some early detection and get some interventions for them earlier.
And I'd want coach buy-in. I think that's I applaud, hopefully this got in a different vein than in the communities that I've had it in. We lost students, like student death to overdoses, alcohol poisoning. It got pretty rugged, and parents finally said, we've got to do this. So hopefully we did not hit that threshold here before it jumped in. But I think, it's one thing to nail a kid on it, but I also want to be the first one there to give them a resource to help them, see if we can get them back in the game. No pun intended.
I agree.
Jamie, we do have resources and intervention for students that are caught with paraphernalia, correct? And it's
We do
been,
have a drug and alcohol counselor through the county. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, under
I
decision.
guess my question would be, would we be looking at middle school as well?
I
I've
don't
only
think
done it
that
in
was
high
ever in
school.
the past, right?
No, but
We never tested middle school.
And I'm not sure I know of a middle school that is,
it's testing,
but
Listen
the only
to
reason
our
I
guys.
ask is because of the amount of stuff we deal with at the middle school. So I'll do some research on that as well.
Suggestion to
Yep.
look into it.
well, they're starting to use at a younger age and then it becomes a
Bigger problem.
bigger problem. Yeah.
They're starting everything at a younger age nowadays.
All right, we do have some decision items. Policy KJGA, relations with parents of children educated pursuant to federal impact aid laws. So this was reviewed last month.
Question for Angie. Have you looked through that? Sound like in your,
Yep, April and I worked on it together with the federal people.
I move to adopt policy KJGA, impact a native policy and procedures as presented.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All those in favor of adopting policy KJGA, impact aid native policy and procedures as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. Okay, and we have resolution 242501, the awesome grant execution.
The awesome grant is the matching money the state brings.
Yeah, for our bond, right?
You go ahead.
You got it. You got it.
I move to adopt, resolution 2324-01, authorizing the execution of the general obligation bond program grant agreement.
Second.
I just want to point out,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
the
different.
dates are-
Okay,
Yeah, so it should be 24-25.
okay,
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
that's what I was wondering.
okay.
Yep.
All right. And there was a second.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of adopting resolution 242501, authorizing the execution of the general obligation bond program grant agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed.
Was it David that second that?
Yep.
Okay, future agenda items, board recognition month is next January.
It's in January, yeah.
Then a budget board position vacancy.
Yep, we still, will be
Is that
addressing.
closed, or do we have any?
So, we need to probably talk about having, a possible work session just before the actual board meeting, next month, to review any applications that have come in. Right now, I've got 2 applicants. So probably you guys want to discuss that, look over the application material, before you decide that in an open session. So, probably,
So the way that could look is we could do the work session with leadership and Krista Parent and the board break, and maybe we'll do dinner that night. They can review. We can do an exec session, bring in some dinner.
To combine the two.
Huh?
To combine the two.
Well, yeah, then the leadership people leave. You guys could do your exec session, have some dinner, and then we'll roll into our meeting. I think we can make it sequence that way.
yeah.
And then we would invite those candidates to come to the meeting for questions. We'll get the script. We'll figure it out.
And then if we can, also, who would be the 2 members, that would be willing to sit in on the committee for the, to look over the RFPs for the, bond?
I will.
Okay.
David?
You can do it. It's fine. I'll let you, Roy.
You're good.
I nominate Roy. He's nominated me for this.
Yeah, and really there's a rubric that we evaluate those proposals with, so I can get them out there due I think the 10th. We'll get them packaged up, so it'll actually be after our next meeting. But we need to get together and you know, we'll have to evaluate them and see what our best options are, so.
So we have David, and is that gonna be you, Roy?
Yes, Roy.
Because Carly's wanting to.
And I don't want to confuse that work with the quick meeting we may need to have before our break. The district restricts my ability to approve products, materials, supplies, capital outlay, and services at 150,000. So I would need board approval to execute that pavilion down there, and we've been value engineering what that is. So I've gotten it down to what I believe is probably our best number. But once I get that final contract, I'll get it out to all of you. And then we can talk through any questions, or you can send me questions. I can address them when we meet.
So are you wanting to plan that meeting next week or when?
Yeah, because that'll be, what is Wednesday? We can do it later in the day. We can do it online I don't need everybody in person.
I don't do it online.
You're welcome to come sit with me.
Come to the office.
I'll go to the
I'm
office.
fine with online.
Used to visit that
Of
place
course
every
you
once
are.
in a while.
I struggle, you know that.
What time of day is best for folks? We could do it right at the end of school, like if you were coming to pick up. What time do you normally come through?
Pick up time, what is it, 3:30?
3:30. Can you do a 3:30?
I could probably do the 3:30.
Okay, we'll shoot for 3:30. We'll create an online link for people that are in the other. county.
Online, and then if not, you want to do it district office or?
We'll do it, yeah, we'll meet at the district office and that way we can answer any questions. Okay, and that's next week. That's next Wednesday.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes. You're doing a marvelous job. You were worried, weren't you? You're doing great.
Thanks. All right, well, there being nothing further on the agenda to discuss, the meeting of
Did
the,
Adam have anything, or is he just
These are classified union.
soaking it up? Union, right.
okay, the meeting of the Willamina School Board is now adjourned.
Bring you some, man. Great.